Imagine a world where the sun no longer warms your face, where every breath is a struggle against the cold. The earth, once full of life, now lies buried beneath ice, and in this endless winter, humanity survives on a single train, forever circling a dead planet. But even here, where survival should unite us, the cruel divide of rich and poor remains. At the back, children cry from hunger. At the front, champagne glasses rise in celebration. In between lies a storm of rebellion, sacrifice, and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, we can begin again. The story begins not with fire, but with ice. In 2014, the world reached the edge of catastrophe. Temperatures were rising, seas were swallowing coastlines, and storms shredded cities into ruins. Humanity, desperate for survival, turned to science for salvation. Their weapon of hope was a chemical called CW7. Released into the atmosphere, it was meant to cool the earth, to restore balance, to buy time. But instead of healing the planet, it killed it. The skies dimmed, clouds thickened, and then came the snow. At first, it was a quiet fall, white dust settling on streets and rooftops. But soon, it became an endless storm. Entire nations disappeared beneath blizzards that never stopped. Oceans froze solid. Forests turned to crystal skeletons. Cities became tombs of ice. The great monuments of man were swallowed. Paris, New York, Beijing, all reduced to frozen graveyards. Humanity's dream of saving itself had turned into its execution. Only a fraction of mankind survived, and they survived not because of governments, not because of armies, but because of a train. A miracle of steel and motion, conceived and built by a man named Wilford. It was called Snowpiercer, a self-sustaining, perpetual machine designed to circle the globe endlessly. Its engine was a sacred marvel, a machine that could never die, never falter, never stop. Within its carriages life endured, a moving arc in an endless storm. But even here, on the last refuge of humanity, old sins thrived. At the front of the train, the wealthy basked in luxury. Gardens grew under glass domes. Aquariums shimmered with life. Orchestras played for diners feasting on delicacies. At the back, however, life was nothing but misery. Men, women, and children crammed into dark compartments. Their food? Black protein bars. Tasteless bricks of survival. Their future? None. For 17 years, the train circled the frozen corpse of the world. 17 years of hunger, silence, and despair. In the tail section, behind locked steel doors, the poor were forgotten. Prisoners of the last train on Earth. Yet, even in the darkest corner of the tail, a spark was alive. A whisper passed between the desperate. This cannot last forever. A hand clenched into a fist. A look of defiance burned in the eyes of the broken. In the heart of the Snowpiercer's tail section, rebellion was stirring. And when that spark ignited, it would set the whole train on fire. 17 years, that is how long they have waited in the darkness of the tail. The tail section of Snowpiercer is not a home. It is a prison. Narrow corridors stink of sweat and rust. Families sleep side by side on the floor, pressed against cold iron walls. Children cry themselves to sleep, their bellies gnawed by hunger. Soldiers come and go in boots that echo like hammers, reminding everyone that they are not passengers, but captives. Their food is rationed with merciless precision. Black protein blocks, dense, tasteless, unchanging. Day after day, year after year, this is all they have. A cruel joke of survival, wrapped in gelatinous black. But worse than hunger is the silence. The silence of doors that never open. The silence of a world they will never see. And yet, something stirs. In the shadows of the tale, a man named Curtis Everett begins to emerge. He is not the loudest, he is not the strongest, but his eyes burn with a quiet resolve. He listens to Gilliam, the elder, the crippled sage of the tale, who teaches patience, strategy, sacrifice. Gilliam whispers that every system can be broken, every prison can be escaped. Curtis does not see himself as a leader, but the others begin to see him as more than just another prisoner. They see in him the possibility of change. Then comes the cruel reminder of their place. Soldiers storm the tale, dragging away children, always children, toward the front of the train, never to return. Parents scream, mothers claw at steel, fathers are beaten into silence. No answers are given, only the sound of the gates slamming shut. The spark grows hotter. Whispers turn into plans. Messages hidden in food rations begin to arrive. Tiny rolled notes concealed inside the black protein blocks. Notes with instructions, maps, timings. Someone from the front is helping them. Someone wants them to rise. Curtis studies every detail. He watches the guards. He counts bullets. He measures the rhythm of patrols. He knows that to reach the engine, they must fight through carriage after carriage. Each one a world of its own. The journey will be brutal. But Gilliam presses him forward. You are the one, the old man insists. You must lead them. And when the moment arrives, the tale is ready. The rebellion begins with fists, knives, and fury. Prisoners surge forward, overwhelming guards, prying open steel doors that have been closed for nearly 2 decades. With every step, the impossible feels closer. With every fallen soldier, hope grows. The train shudders, alive with chaos. The poor are no longer silent. Their voices rise like thunder in the dark corridors. The tail section has found its spark, and once lit, a spark cannot be put out. The gates open. For the first time in 17 years, the people of the tale see what lies beyond their iron prison. The first carriages are bare and industrial. Storage rooms, mechanical chambers, spaces forgotten by those in the front. But as the rebels push forward, steel doors give way to entire worlds. Each carriage is its own society, its own deception, and each one demands blood. Curtis leads from the front, his face grim, his eyes unflinching. Edgar, the young and reckless fighter, charges at his side. Tanya, a mother whose child was taken by soldiers, fights with a desperation sharper than any blade. Behind them, dozens of tail-section souls surge forward, starved, enraged, alive with the fire of rebellion. Then comes the first real battle. A door opens into a carriage filled with masked guards, armed not with guns, but with gleaming axes. Torches burn on the walls, their flames licking the steel as the two sides face each other in silence. For a heartbeat, the world holds its breath. Then, impact. Steel slams against flesh. Screams echo in the confined space. The carriage becomes a slaughterhouse. Blood splashes across glass windows as rebels and guards clash in the flickering firelight. Curtis fights like a man possessed, but every victory comes at a cost. Edgar falls in the chaos, his life cut short in the fury of blades. Curtis does not pause to mourn. He cannot. The train demands forward motion. Carriage after carriage, the rebels advance. And with each door, the cruelty of the train's design is revealed. One carriage is a brightly lit classroom. Children sing songs of praise to Wilford, their faces innocent, their voices sweet. The teacher, smiling with fanatical devotion, preaches that the engine is eternal, that Wilford is divine. But the smiles hide violence, the children are pawns, the teacher herself, armed with a gun, becomes an executioner. Even innocence is weaponized here. The teacher, smiling with fanatical devotion, preaches that the engine is eternal, that Wilford is divine. But the smiles hide violence. The children are pawns. The teacher herself, armed with a gun, becomes an executioner. Even innocence is weaponized here. Another carriage is a place of indulgence. Nightclubs glowing with neon, bodies swaying to music, passengers drunk on excess. While the tale starved, these passengers drowned in pleasure. The sight burns into the rebels' hearts like poison. And yet, the deeper they go, the stranger it becomes. Sushi is served fresh from an aquarium. Plants flourish in a greenhouse. A golden hall echoes with the sound of a string quartet. Each carriage is another insult, another reminder of the divide. The rebels' numbers dwindle. Each battle, each locked door takes its toll. Gilliam, the elder who inspired them, is taken and executed. His death delivered as a message of power from the front. Curtis carries the loss like a wound, but it only hardens his resolve. The march becomes slower, heavier, but unstoppable. Bloodied, exhausted, fewer with each step, they press on. For beyond all this decadence at the very front lies the engine, and with it the promise of control. Every drop of blood spilled in these carriages drives them closer to destiny. The tale has risen, and it will not turn back. The rebels have carved their way through blood and fire. Their numbers have thinned to a handful, but their will has not broken. At last, Curtis stands at the threshold of the train's most forbidden world, the front. It is here that the illusion shatters. The doors open to reveal a silence unlike the chaos behind. Gone are the screams, the hunger, the stench of the tale. Here, the walls gleam with glass and steel, the air hums with warmth and order. This is the sanctum of Wilford, the architect, the godlike engineer whose name is worshipped by the faithful. Curtis expects a tyrant. Instead, he finds a man, calm, silver-haired, precise. Wilford welcomes him not with fury, but with civility. A table is laid with food. Wine glitters in crystal glasses. The contrast is grotesque. And then Wilford begins to speak. He speaks not as a monster, but as a man of reason. The train, he says, is a delicate ecosystem. Every carriage, every life, must exist in perfect balance. If too many live, the system collapses. If too many die, the system falters. Order must be maintained, and sometimes that order requires sacrifice. It is then the most horrifying truth is revealed. The uprisings were never accidents. They were designed. Gilliam, the very man who inspired Curtis to rebel, was part of the plan all along. Each rebellion was a controlled fire, lit by Wilford himself, to thin the herd. Hope, carefully fed, carefully extinguished. The deaths of friends, the spilling of blood, it was all part of the engine's design. Curtis is shaken to the core. His struggle, his losses, his entire journey manipulated. But Wilford is not finished. He offers Curtis the unthinkable: succession. The engine, he insists, must have a leader, someone willing to make the hard choices, to sacrifice without hesitation. He sees in Curtis the resolve, the ruthlessness, the very qualities required to keep humanity alive aboard the train. Curtis resists. He cannot accept becoming the thing he fought against. But then comes the final cruelty. The children. In the sacred engine, beneath its unending machinery, small children crawl, their tiny bodies used as living parts, replacing components too delicate to manufacture. Their hands, small enough to reach the gears, keep the engine alive. Innocence, consumed for eternity. Curtis stares, broken. Memories flood back. The hunger of the tail section, the unspeakable act he committed long ago when starving men turned on each other. He remembers the taste of human flesh. He remembers his shame. He remembers Gilliam stopping him, offering his own arm as food to save others. Curtis has carried that wound all his life. And now, faced with Wilford's revelation, he sees himself reflected in the cold, merciless logic of the engine. He stands at the edge of choice, to accept Wilford's offer and rule, or to destroy everything. Curtis stands before the sacred heart of the train, the roar of the engine vibrating in his bones. Behind him lies a trail of blood, sacrifice, and shattered illusions. Before him, Wilford waits calmly, as though all of this, the rebellion, the deaths, the suffering, were nothing but another chapter in the engine's eternal rhythm. But Curtis no longer sees a machine of salvation. He sees a prison. The offer to rule burns in his mind. To take Wilford's place would mean power. It would mean survival, for some. But it would also mean chains. It would mean children torn from their mothers, swallowed by the engine's gears. It would mean becoming the very thing he fought to destroy. The choice is unbearable, yet it is not his alone to make. Beside him stands Yona, the daughter of Namgong, the locksmith who helped unlock the train's doors. Yona is young, scarred by the journey, yet her eyes burn with a clarity Curtis has lost. She does not see the engine as sacred. She sees it for what it is, a cage. And then, outside, the world stirs. For 17 years, the passengers have believed the Earth was dead, unlivable. But through the frozen windows, Yona has seen something Wilford will not acknowledge. Signs of thaw, ice breaking, snow melting, the possibility that life still waits beyond the steel walls of the train. Hope, buried beneath ice, is rising again. The decision comes in fire. Curtis chooses not to inherit Wilford's crown of cruelty, but to end the cycle. He throws himself into the machinery, sacrificing everything to destroy the system that enslaved them. Explosions tear through the carriages. The unstoppable machine, the eternal prison, derails in a storm of metal and snow. Screams echo, then silence. When the world settles, only two survivors remain: Yona and Timmy, one of the children once forced to labor in the engine. Together, they crawl from the wreckage into the frozen wilderness. The air is sharp, the snow crunches underfoot. And then, they see it. A shadow moving against the white horizon, a creature long thought extinct, a polar bear, its fur gleaming in the sunlight, alive. For the first time in 17 years, the survivors know the truth. The Earth is healing. The world is not dead. The Snowpiercer's endless circle is broken. The cycle of oppression has ended. From the wreckage of steel, humanity has a chance to begin again, not in chains, but in freedom. The train was humanity's last refuge, but outside these walls, A new beginning waits. In the silence of the snow, the future breathes once more. The world has been frozen, shattered, and rebuilt by fire and blood. The train that carried the last of humanity is gone, but its lessons remain. Freedom is not given, it is seized. Sacrifice is not forgotten, it shapes the future. And in the heart of the endless white, life whispers once more. The earth survives, humanity survives, and perhaps, for the first time in 17 years, hope does too. The camera lingers on Yona and Timmy, small figures against the infinite snow, as a lone polar bear moves in the distance, a symbol of a world waking from its frozen slumber. Fade to white. The story ends, but the journey continues.